The murder of Jill Dando. Jill Dando was one of Britain's most beloved television personalities, a household name who charmed millions with her warmth, professionalism, and smile. Born on November 9, 1961, in the quiet seaside town of Weston-super-Mare, Jill had a middle-class upbringing in a tight-knit family. Her early years were defined by her ambition to succeed in journalism, a career she pursued with unrelenting passion. She began working for local newspapers before transitioning to television, where she quickly rose through the ranks to become one of the most prominent faces on the BBC. By the 1990s, she was a regular presenter on major shows like BBC News and Crime Watch, a program dedicated to helping solve crimes. Jill's work on Crime Watch in particular endeared her to the public as she worked tirelessly to help make her country a safer place. Her charisma, beauty, and compassion earned her the title of the Golden Girl of British television. At the time of her murder, Jill's personal life seemed equally charmed. She was engaged to a doctor, Alan Farthing, and the couple were in the midst of planning their wedding. Their future seemed bright, full of happiness and promise. However, Jill's life was cut tragically short in one of the most shocking and high-profile murders in modern British history. On the morning of April 26, 1999, Jill was returning to her home in Fulham, West London, after running some errands. She arrived at her house on Gowan Avenue around 11:30 a.m., completely unaware of the danger that awaited her. As she reached her front door, she was approached by a figure who quickly and efficiently ended her life. In a chilling and calculated manner, the assailant placed a gun behind her left ear and fired a single shot at point-blank range. The bullet severed her carotid artery, killing her almost instantly. The scene was one of cold precision. There were no signs of a struggle, no robbery, no forced entry. Whoever killed Jill had planned the attack carefully and executed it swiftly. Her body was discovered shortly after by a neighbor who immediately called the police. The investigation into Jill Dando's murder became one of the largest in British history, with hundreds of officers assigned to the case. The police were under immense pressure. Not only had a high-profile celebrity been murdered in broad daylight, but the nation was mourning. Jill was more than a public figure. She was a symbol of integrity and kindness, a figure people trusted. The idea that someone could murder her so brutally sent shockwaves through the country. Early in the investigation, the police suspected that Jill's murder might be the result of her work on Crime Watch. Some speculated that she had been targeted by a criminal seeking revenge for her involvement in solving crimes. However, no solid evidence emerged to support this theory. The idea that Jill had an obsessive stalker was also floated, given her high public profile, but again, investigators struggled to find proof of such an individual in her life. A year after the murder, the investigation led to the arrest of Barry George, a man with a history of mental illness who lived near Jill's home. He was known as a local loner and had exhibited odd behavior, leading the police to believe he could be responsible. In 2001, George was convicted of Jill's murder and sentenced to life in prison. However, doubts about his involvement persisted. The conviction was largely based on circumstantial evidence, and many questioned whether George, who had no clear motive or the expertise to carry out such a professional killing, could have committed the crime. 7 years later, in 2008, Barry George's conviction was quashed on appeal. The courts found that there was insufficient forensic evidence linking him to the murder, and he was acquitted. George's release reignited the mystery of Jill Dando's death, leaving the public and investigators with more questions than answers. If Barry George wasn't responsible, who was, and why had Jill been targeted? Over the years, several theories have surfaced. One of the most widely circulated is that Jill's murder was a revenge killing by Serbian militants. This theory stems from Jill's involvement in reporting on the NATO bombings of Serbian targets during the Kosovo War. Some speculated that Serbian criminals, angered by the Western media's portrayal of the conflict, targeted Jill in retaliation. This theory gained some traction due to the professional nature of the hit. It seemed to have been carried out by someone with experience, possibly a contract killer. Yet, no concrete evidence has ever supported this, and no connections to organized crime were ever proven. Another prominent theory suggests that Jill Dando's murder was the work of a professional hitman, possibly hired by someone with a vendetta against her. The cold and calculated nature of the killing's single shot, point blank, no witnesses led many to believe that this was no random crime but a highly organized assassination. But who would want Jill Dando dead, and why? These questions have plagued investigators for years, with no clear answers emerging. The autopsy confirmed what many already suspected: Jill had died from a single gunshot wound to the head. The bullet had entered just behind her left ear and caused massive damage, killing her almost instantly. There were no other signs of injury, no bruising or defensive wounds, indicating that she was likely taken by surprise. The forensics team also found that the weapon used was a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, further suggesting the killer was someone experienced with firearms. Jill Dando's murder had a profound impact on British society. The public was gripped by grief and shock. How could someone so beloved, so seemingly untouchable, be murdered in such a cold, calculated manner? Thousands of people attended memorial services, and flowers piled up outside the BBC headquarters and her home in Fulham. Her colleagues were devastated, struggling to comprehend how someone so universally liked could have been the victim of such a heinous crime. The media coverage of her murder was relentless, with every new piece of evidence or theory being front-page news. The unsolved nature of Jill's death only deepened the public's fascination. Despite the exhaustive investigation, the police were never able to find Jill's killer, leaving the case open to endless speculation. Documentaries, books, and TV specials have revisited the case over the years, attempting to piece together the mystery of who killed Jill Dando and why. It remains one of the most high-profile unsolved murders in British history, a case that continues to captivate the public and haunt investigators. In her memory, the Jill Dando Institute of Crime Science was established at University College London. It was the first institute of its kind, dedicated to advancing research and methods in crime prevention. The institute stands as a lasting tribute to Jill's life and her commitment to helping keep others safe through her work on Crime Watch. Even in death, her legacy continues to influence the field of crime science, a fitting homage to a woman who dedicated her life to informing and protecting the public. More than 2 decades have passed since Jill Dando's murder, yet the case remains open, unsolved, and a source of intrigue for investigators and crime enthusiasts alike. Despite numerous theories and efforts, no one has ever been definitively linked to her death. The question of who killed Jill Dando and why remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in British crime history. If enjoyed this video, give us a subscribe for weekly updates.